Hello, this is Kaylia in 2020. What you are about to hear is the remastered version of the episode that you clicked on. Why? Well, it turns out that when I started this podcast, I got some incorrect information regarding copyright law and fair use policy. After nearly 2 years of making content, this oversight was brought to my attention. There was mild panic, lots of guilt, and then a few fervent nights doing research. It seems we might exist in this gray, nebulous area of fair use for critique and commentary, and thus our use of a teeny tiny bit of the music from the soundtracks of the movies that we are critiquing and commenting on might be allowable. But then again, it might not. So a few things. 1, I don't want to be a jerk, even accidentally. 2, I think it's important to acknowledge when you mess up. But 3, and this is key, I think acknowledging your mess up isn't enough. You have to rectify the situation if possible. And guess what? It's totally possible to go back into these old episodes and clip out the maybe illegal, maybe just slightly crappy bit of audio and replace it with a bit of music created just for me by the same composer and performer who made us our theme music. Which is what I'm going to do. And since I can't help but tinker just a smidge, I might clean up a teeny tiny bit of audio noise while I'm in there. I mean, I've learned a lot over the last 2 years, and who knows, you might be stumbling upon this podcast feed years from now. So why should your present-day ears be punished because way back in time, I hadn't yet found the noise reduction button? Anyway, without further ado, here is the podcast you came here for, just slightly better. Thanks for listening.
It's the Pages of Popcorn podcast. Jennifer and Kaylia will edify. It's the Pages of Popcorn podcast. Jennifer and Kaylia are gonna talk, so you'd better damn well listen.
Hello, and welcome to the Pages and Popcorn podcast, the podcast where we, Jennifer and
Kaylia!
2 book nerds, talk about movies based on books as well as the original source material.
Today we will be discussing The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Actually, we'll be discussing the novel, which is called The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and it was written by American writer Stephen Chbosky, and it was published in February of 1999. And as you might have guessed, it was made into a movie with the same title in the year 2012.
But first, we are going to tell you all the ways you can connect with us on the internet.
As you know, we have a webpage where you can find sources, references, and updates about the show.
You can also connect with us via our Facebook page and our Twitter, both searchable by typing Pages and Popcorn Podcast into your search bar. And we are on Goodreads, so no matter how you do the social media thing, you can connect with us.
And of course, you can email us directly at pagesandpopcornpodcast@gmail.com. And we want to really encourage you to rate and review us on whatever platform you are using to listen to us, on especially iTunes, because that will help other people find us.
As always, we want to thank our patrons for their ongoing support. $1 a month, or $5 if you're feeling especially generous, helps us keep doing this, and we love doing this.
On with the show.
All right.
Do you think I should put Asleep by the Smiths or Heroes by Bowie as the song?
Heroes is more fun, and David Bowie is still king of the world. So, yeah, I vote Heroes.
Yeah, I usually use a song from the movie. It's just that, like, the song Asleep was mentioned so many times in both the book, and they did mention it a lot in the movie, even though Heroes was the song in the tunnel.
We should discuss that a little bit once we get to the podcast, because that was, like, the song that wasn't named in the book, and they decided to make it Heroes.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, but, you know, I love David Bowie, so that was fine. It was supposed to be a Landslide by Fleetwood Mac.
What do you mean?
So when she's doing her tunnel thing, that was one of the things he was like, oh, I feel infinite. So they were listening to that song, but he also has that memory of it being Landslide because that was one of her favorite songs.
Yeah, but but it wasn't really clear.
No, it wasn't stated which was the infinite song.
Right.
They just decided to make it Heroes, which it works. It's fine.
Yeah. I feel like, and we definitely will talk about this, but I feel like this is one of those times where, like, sometimes you hear a song, and even if the song isn't great, because of where you are in your life and what's happening, like, that song is so perfect, and then every time you hear it, like, you're filled with that same nostalgia and the same feelings, or at least you can remember them.
Yeah.
Like, when I was in the process of getting divorced, there was a song that was called, I Think I'll Move to Boston, think is what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it starts out with this music box playing, and it's, like, you know, about starting over and changing your life and all of this stuff. And it was, like, so profound and so meaningful, and it made me cry, and I put it on every single mixtape list, song thing, burnt CD for, like, ages. And, like, I listened to it not too terribly long ago, and I was like, this song is okay, but
it was perfect for that
it
moment.
was so perfect. And I think that, I mean, basically that's what this whole novel and the movie is about. Like, those moments that are perfect for that being those moments right then.
Yeah, we should probably get into the synopsis.
Yeah, I guess we should.
Really, okay, so I Like Asleep, but it's slow and kind of down, and we have a higher beat going.
Yes. Okay. Book recap. The book is written as a series of letters from Charlie to an unnamed mystery person. Charlie likes the anonymity of writing to a stranger, someone he's heard about but doesn't actually know. He leaves out enough detail so that the reader won't be able to recognize him. Anyways, Charlie is our narrator. He begins on the eve of his first day of high school, and the book pretty much goes until his first day of sophomore year. A year in the life of Charlie. Charlie starts off high school still reeling from the suicide of his friend Michael. Charlie is a loner and doesn't fit in at school. His former friends are either dead, popular, or have moved away. Charlie has an older sister, a senior, a brother who's a freshman at Penn State and plays football, and parents who get fleshed out as the story progresses. Okay, major plot points for the year in the life of Charlie. His sister has a boyfriend who hits her, and she won't let Charlie tell their parents, so he tells his English teacher, Bill, who sees potential in Charlie and has been giving him outside-of-class reading and attention, but not in the bad, creepy way. His sister is pissed at him, and despite being forbidden, she sees the abusive boyfriend secretly. More on them later. Charlie makes references to the bad times and his stint in the hospital, and then there is still heartache from losing his Aunt Helen, who seemed to be the only member of his family who really understood him. Charlie makes a friend with a boy called Nothing, whose real name is Patrick, and Patrick's stepsister Sam. They're both seniors, world-wise, into alternative music, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, drinking, smoking, and drugs. They take him under their wing, and through them he also gets to know Mary Elizabeth, Bob, Alice, and lots of cigarettes and booze and even drugs. Charlie has hit the mother lode. One perfect moment is when they drive through a tunnel listening to music and Charlie feels a sense of belonging for the first time. Charlie is of course in love with Sam, but she tells him not to think of her that way, so he tries not to. Patrick is in love and sleeping with the quarterback Brad, but this too is a secret because Brad is afraid. By the way, during a conversation about first kisses and the fact that Sam has a bit of a reputation from early in high school, it is revealed that Charlie is super unexperienced and Sam was kissed at a young age, and yes, in the bad, creepy way. Sam actually kisses Charlie so that his first kiss will be from someone who loves him, but again, she's dating someone else and Charlie has to hold his feelings for her in check. This all happens at Christmas, where Charlie has gotten everyone the most personal and perfect presents, and Sam has given him an epic gift of a typewriter because she, along with everybody else, knows that he is going to someday be a writer. But again, she isn't interested in him. Charlie recites a poem to his friends that is super teen angst and nihilistic. They all nod sagely about how profound it is. At a later party, Charlie trips on LSD. He cannot control his flashbacks of Aunt Helen, who died in a car crash on her way to buy him a birthday gift. He ends up in the hospital after falling asleep in the snow. At a Rocky Horror Picture Show performance, Charlie is asked to fill in as Rocky for Sam's boyfriend Craig, who is unavailable. Their friend Mary Elizabeth is impressed and asks Charlie to be her date at the Sadie Hawkins dance. Mary Elizabeth decides after that they are now a couple. Charlie isn't thrilled with this, but Mary Elizabeth, who sounds kind of awesome by the way, is a super punk and is steamrolling chatterbox full of ideas and plans of things to expose Charlie to, and she basically steamrolls Charlie with her non-stop talking until he fucks it all up during a game of truth and dare where he, upon a dare to kiss the prettiest girl in the room, does not kiss her, but kisses Sam instead. Drama. Suddenly, Charlie is booted from the warm and fuzzy embrace of his friend group and is all alone again. His sister gets pregnant, and Charlie helps her out by taking her to an abortion clinic and taking care of her. She dumps the loser boyfriend, and she and Charlie start to have a decent relationship. Oh, Charlie's brother is doing well at the football and the cheerleading, dating, and whatever, and who cares? So now, Charlie is friendless, but he still loves his friends, so when Patrick and Brad have an argument at school, and Brad calls Patrick a faggot, and then a brawl ensues, Charlie jumps in and saves Patrick's butt by kicking a ton of macho football player ass. Patrick is properly thankful, and he and Charlie start hanging out a lot. Charlie sees Patrick spiraling, and is there for him, even for some boy-on-boy kissing, but only in the friendly way. The friends group has welcomed Charlie back after his bout of violence, and Mary Elizabeth is now dating a college guy who challenges her, and blah blah blah. Charlie is starting to realize that all of his friends are going to graduate, and it's starting to really bum him out. He's especially bummed about Sam, who's leaving for a summer college preparatory program, so she has to leave right after graduation, and now she's learned that her boyfriend cheated on her, so she dumps him, thankfully. When Charlie helps her pack, they talk about his feelings for her. She's suddenly angry that he never acted on his feelings, because apparently she forgot that she had told him not to. And this is so weird, she chastises him for not being a participant, for not being a good friend, because according to her, he wasn't being honest about his own needs, but damn, I feel like she was in a different book or something, so we'll talk about that. Whatever, they start to make out, and then they start to have sex, and then Charlie freezes up a bit, and then he has a panic attack, so he sleeps on the couch. He has a dream that night that he and the reader both begin to realize that his sexual contact with Sam has stirred up repressed memories of him being molested by his Aunt Helen as a little boy. Yes, in the creepy, creepy way. Sam leaves the next day, and Charlie has a mental breakdown after writing it all down in a letter. In an epilogue, it's months later, and Charlie is writing his last letter to catch us all up. He has been found by his parents in a catatonic state, and does not show any movement despite being hit reluctantly by his father. After being admitted to a mental hospital, it is revealed that Helen actually sexually abused him when he was very young. The memories he had unconsciously repressed. The psychological damage explains his flashbacks and his derealization phases throughout the book. In 2 months, Charlie is released, and Sam and Patrick visit him. In the epilogue, Sam, Patrick, and Charlie all go through the tunnel again. Charlie stands up, exclaims that he feels infinite. The end. Okay. Movie recap. It is very, 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 very much the same. Some scenes were omitted from the film adaptation. In the book, Charlie's parents are notified by Bill that Candace, the sister, is being abused by her boyfriend, to which his parents take direct intervention in their abusive relationship. But in the movie, they don't, because they never know. Also omitted from the film is the side story where Candace gets pregnant by her abusive boyfriend and is accompanied by Charlie to the abortion clinic. Not in the movie. In addition, one of the most important pieces of the book, the poem, their angsty teenage suicide poem, was deleted from the film. The book has lots more about Charlie's extended family. The movie replaces all that with lots of Catholic imagery and going to church. But all the main plot points are the same. Charlie's alone. He's an outcast. He meets Sam and Patrick, a friend group, adult content, relationships with the wrong girl. Everyone's been abused. Lots of urban legend stories. Teacher Bill is Paul Rudd and, very awesome and married. So, okay, that's fine. No outside of school lunches at Bill's house, which is probably good. Charlie's parents are much smaller roles, as is his brother. The motivation for Sam and Patrick is spelled out more in the movie because, Charlie tells them about Michael's suicide. So their friendship starts as pity and then becomes real friendship. Also, the movie has a whole subplot about Sam needing to retake the SATs and Charlie helping her study. When Charlie is having his final mental breakdown after Sam leaves, in the movie he calls his sister for help before blacking out. Also, they changed the color of Sam's eyes. Everything else is the same. Ta-da.
All right.
How did you come to this book and movie?
I remember hearing about it because I had finally gotten cable for the first time, late after everybody else. And it was an MTV project. So I heard about it, but never really got into it. And then you suggested it for this, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool.
So you saw the movie before reading the book?
Nope, neither one. I had avoided all of it. I just heard about it because of MTV and didn't get into it whatsoever.
Wait, so you weren't in book club when we read this?
Nope.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was pre-Jennifer book club.
Yes.
So we read this in book club. Okay. Okay, so first time.
Yep, I was a Wallflower virgin.
Like so many wallflowers are.
Except for the people in this book. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. I think I heard about the movie first. I think it was because Emma Watson was in this movie, and she was Hermione in Harry Potter, and this was like a different role for her, and I remember, seeing the preview. I think I actually saw the movie, although I don't really remember, but I know I saw the movie first because when I was reading this book, everybody looked like the characters in the movie. When I read it for book club. And I think that was probably the first time that I read it, was for book club, which was several years ago. And then obviously I reread it and then watched the movie again for this. So, yeah, some exposure.
So, anything that you want to start off with? Because the one that kind of gets to me is Charlie on the autism spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, yeah. I don't think it's ever, explicitly said, and I couldn't find too much about that, but I definitely read it that way. But here's the thing. In 1999, I don't know if we didn't have a lot of people on the spectrum in books in the 90s, right? Okay. And I think that all those things that you and I look at and we go, okay, that's a sign, the way he understands things, the way he repeats things, the way his mind works, we see that pretty clearly as spectrum behavior. I don't know, because the author based Charlie off of himself, and the author does not identify as somebody who's on the spectrum. So my thought is that the author made all of those quirks because of the abuse. And so that's a little unsettled. I don't know. So I don't know if he was meant to, but I definitely read it that way. Yeah. And because of the abuse, and then also because Michael had committed suicide, and then so he was like dealing with that. So he was like somebody who had suffered trauma. I feel like the book was saying all of his idiosyncrasies and his issues came from those two traumas, not from maybe a neuro difference. But I definitely read it as he's neurologically different.
So I can see the author trying to go for someone who's disassociated, which is a factor in trauma. But yeah, he totally comes off as somebody who's on the spectrum. And that's a lot clearer in the novel because we get so much of his thoughts. Whereas in the movie, he's just kind of an isolated character.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely got a much deeper sense of Charlie in the novel. For sure.
But that's also sort of interesting. I know a number of people who are on the spectrum, and you can't always tell. It's
right.
Not Rain Man. And I like having non-neurotypical characters presented in film and books. I think it's great. And plus, we do need to see not all autism spectrum is Rain Man.
Oh, right, for sure. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter. This is not a book about a spectrum person dealing with trauma. You know what I mean? What it is about a book about people dealing with trauma. Somebody may or may not happen to also be on the spectrum, but that's not really the point.
It's not a major plot issue.
Right. Definitely.
And that, I don't know, did you ultimately like this book?
Wow. Jumping to the end, huh? Are you sure we want to jump to the end?
Well, we don't have to. I just found it somewhat frustrating that there are a lot of topics covered and some really serious ones, but it doesn't feel like they're brought up, but they're never really talked about or dealt with. And some of that's fine. I like that Charlie's autism, and we're going to go forward with saying that he's autism spectrum.
Yeah, I would say much more probably Asperger's specifically.
Well, yeah, so that's a spectrum. Everyone...
Autism, but yes, yeah. Neurotypical.
Yeah, non-neurotypical.
Non-neurotypical, yes.
So, going forth with that, I like that it's just part of his character, but it's not a big deal. It's not a big plot point. I also like that Patrick's homosexuality is part of his character. It's not a major plot point.
I mean, there are plot points that because
of it, but it's not like we have to make a plot about this or central to that, if that makes sense. And I never see lesbian characters who are given that. It's always like gay characters.
Male gay characters, not female.
Yeah.
Gay characters. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot more representation, and I think it's because it's confronting a higher taboo in our society. That's a whole huge discussion.
Well, I mean, okay, so let's... You said two things that I want to make sure we have time to talk about. Mm-hmm. One is that you feel like it raised a bunch of topics and didn't delve into any of them specifically, thoroughly.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that to a certain extent. I do feel like it was very ambitious. It's let me tackle, like, there's a list somewhere because of, like, all the things that this book has, and the list is very long.
Abortion, abuse.
Yeah, incest, I mean, body imagery, and I mean, just, there's tons of stuff, right? Okay, got it. So, okay, on the one hand, that's life. We all encounter lots of stuff. None of us only have one issue, right? So that's like an intersectionality aspect, I feel like. You know what I mean? Especially when you've got like this little group of friends and whatnot. I was okay that nothing got delved in terribly deeply, because I also feel like that's also kind of life. Like when you're, it's not about one particular thing that we're going to like really get into and solve or focus on. It's more of a survey course. This book is like freshman English class, dun dun, where you survey all the potential little things, and then eventually you're going to get into them more specifically. But a survey class, you're touching on a bunch of different topics. Does that make sense? So I was okay with that. That didn't actually, that part didn't bother me. I did feel like there was an attitude of, well, this is going to be the typical teenage story, so I'm going to put everything I can possibly think that teenagers may or may not ever have gone through into this book, and that bothered me just a smidge, because I felt like these aren't typical teenagers, but maybe they just, because I wasn't this, like, I would not have fit into Charlie's little group.
There are certain things that you don't need to go that much into to be able to read what's going on. So when Patrick and Brad have their fight, that was kind of fine, because you can read into everything that's going on. You can read into the pain. But when it came to the sister's abortion, is like, that happens, and okay, so that's a thing that happened, and if you took that out of the book, would it have changed anything?
Well, actually, I think it does. They took it out for the movie. It wasn't there in the movie. But then they made the choice to, in the movie, when Charlie is upset at the end, right before he has his mental break, he calls his sister. And that really didn't feel like it made sense to me, because he didn't have a relationship with his sister, really, in the movie, the way he did in the book. In the book,
that's taken out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. In the book, we have, and part of their relationship building was this shared experience of him being there for her, and him taking care of her. It wasn't just that he knew. It, like, she chose to tell him, you know. She confided in him, even though he had broken her quote unquote trust before by narking on the abusive boyfriend, right? So, like, that, there's layers to that relationship. And then he doesn't just drive her there and drive her home, but, like, he brings a pillow and he, like, turns the heater on in the car so that she can take a nap in the backseat. And then, you know, he lies when they get home, like, to cover up for where they've been, and they've become like a little unit of, you know, not telling her parents and stuff. So that relationship felt really good. And I liked that. It was like, Charlie isn't just about his friends. His family was a major part of the book. Like, we had all these stories about his extended uncles and his grandfather and his racist grandfather and this and that and the other thing. We had Charlie's understanding of why his family was it way. My grandfather, you know, my grandmother was sad. She married this guy. He was mean. He hit my mom. He hit my sister, my mother's sister, Aunt Helen. That's why my mom is really sad. And then when his dad is like, we decided we would never hit you guys because, you know, so, like, there's all of this framework, this foundation of that, which obviously they didn't have time for in the movie. And okay, that's fine. But because it was all there, it made Charlie's whole world much richer and deeper. And so I felt like the abortion scene was important. I'm glad it was there. I don't feel like it could have been lifted out to get the full sense of Charlie and his world.
It felt like it could have, just because it's a thing that happens and it does bring them closer together, so it changes the relationship that he has with his sister. But, you know, if she had one conversation about it, it would have taken it to a new level. So if I compare this to other YA novels, like, you know, stuff John Green writes, or The Hate You Give, one conversation adds a lot more depth and context to what's going on. So she has an abortion, but, you know, she doesn't ever reflect on that. And that's why it feels like it's just this tiny little thing that happens.
I disagree with that, because she does reflect on it, because she starts reading all these self-help books. She changes her life because of that abortion. She breaks up with the guy. She tells the guy that it was a mistake, so it's not because of the abortion that they broke up, but it's because of his reaction and her realizing that this is not a good relationship. She starts reading self-help novels. She's changing. She gets back into school. She finishes second in the class. Like, she has a character arc. And I think it's important that Charlie sees that. It's not just about Charlie. It's about the whole context. And I think that for a book that's very masculine in some ways, it's important that we have a female foil, so it's not just Sam and Charlie and Aunt Helen and his mom, but we also have, you know, Mary Elizabeth, and we have his sister, and his sister is like the other side of Sam, really. And I see a lot of parallels between the two of them, because both of them had the wild, crazy early on in high school. They both had a little bit of reputations, and they're both with loser boyfriends. You know, Sam's boyfriend is cheating on her. She doesn't know that, but he is not nice, you know, like, we all know that. Even she knows that. And Candace, Charlie's sister, her boyfriend hits her, but she can control him a little bit, but there's this weird power dynamic going on over there, which is probably residual from the fact that, again, like, everybody in the family knows that the mom had been beat as a child, and, like, so, like, there's all of this stuff, and then how they react to that and what they do. You know, Sam gets into a good college, the college of her choice. Charlie's sister finds her way back to getting good grades and, you know, graduates second in the class and gives a speech and, like, all of this stuff. And so I think they're very important. I'm
happy with their character arcs. I'm not complaining about that. What I'm complaining about, and I wish it wasn't framed like it's always a complaint, but it feels like there's something lost without having a little bit more of a direct conversation with the audience about that.
Okay. I disagree, but that's okay.
So, yeah, the character arcs are fine. I want something more, you know, okay, so you had an abortion, and you're reading self-help books. Have a conversation with Charlie about, okay, this is kind of something I sort of figured out. You know, just something to add a little bit more depth to it. Because otherwise it's just a thing that kind of happens.
Well, I think okay, we can disagree. I found it very believable that you go through these things together, and you don't always have that, now let's have tea and have a deep conversation about what we've learned, you know, what did we learn today? No, I think it
doesn't have to be like one of those conversations of, oh, what did we learn? That's really artificial. But that's what I mean. I see other YA novels who are able to do that better.
Okay. I don't like comparing novels. Okay. Sure. Anything else that you didn't like about this book?
No, I was just going to say about comparing. There's that little scene where the boyfriend says, "Poetry writes me," and I thought of your Poetry Falcon. He needed a little Poetry Falcon.
He did need a Poetry Falcon. Yes,
because he was a tool.
He was a tool. They did a good job of showing that in the movie for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about?
The other thing that you referenced earlier that I just touched on briefly was how women are depicted, and specifically women in terms of love. I mean, we can talk about masculine love too, but I think that they're dealt with slightly differently. So it's the women who are they're all victims. All the women in this book are victims of something, right? Except for maybe Mary Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who isn't a victim in some way, and there's like the teacher and the father, sort of, but they're I'm not going to say they're minor characters, but their character arcs are really background.
Well, I mean, all of the other minor characters. I mean, Bob is not a victim. Peter's not a victim. Craig is an asshole. Like, you know what I mean? But
Brad is a victim.
I'm sorry.
Brad is a victim.
Brad is a victim. Patrick is a victim for sure. But they are, I guess I would say Brad is definitely a victim. Patrick is a social victim, and he's got he's gay and he's closeted and all of this stuff for sure. But like, I'm talking specifically like victims of parental abuse, right? Or, you know, because Sam's father's boss kissed her when she was 11. Like, so she was abused as a child. Okay. Charlie was abused as a child. Aunt Helen and Charlie's mom were both beaten as children. Mm. You know, you have all of this ideas, and it makes the book had, I think, 2 really good lines. Unfortunately, I feel like one of them was used to explain away why, and in the case of the conversation, it definitely felt like it, why women choose bad relationships. You know, why is Candace with this guy who hits her? Why is Sam with a guy who's a dick? Why is
that you get the love you think you deserve?
Yeah, people accept the love they think they deserve, which is pretty valid, right? For sure.
It's just turned into such a Tumblr meme.
Okay, but that's not the fault of the book.
No, it's just
cliches are cliches for a reason. So, you know, and that is true, you know, and so that was cool, but it was framed in this, Charlie's asking that question because of his sister, because of Sam, because he has this knowledge of his mom and his aunt and stuff like that. And so that's really sad.
I can also see that in terms of Brad and Patrick too. Because Patrick is in the movie, he's not nearly as closeted as he is in the book. And so he is openly gay. He does make gay jokes and this and that, but he accepts a closeted...
He's the class clown.
Yeah, but he accepts a closeted relationship with somebody who has massive issues with this.
Mm-hmm. Out of fear.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, which is very sad as well. So there's so much abuse. And I like, that to me is one of the things that I didn't like about this book, was that everybody was, you know what I mean? And on the one you can say, well, in the real world, Kaylia, everybody is. But you know what? No, that's not actually true. Not everybody has been improperly touched as a child. Like, it happens, and it's awful. I'm not downplaying it, but
I thought it was more interesting because the sister, like, Charlie and the sister, their parents are fine, but it's a generational thing. So even if their parents weren't abusive, there's that abusive nature in the family that they have in the extended family. Mm-hmm. And she does see that. Even if her parents aren't doing anything, it's still there when they go visit the grandfather, who's this raging, racist, homophobic jerk.
Yep, and all the Iowa cousins or Ohio cousins or whatever.
So she still sees that behavior being modeled.
Yeah. Well, and like the first 5 or 6 things we hear about Charlie's mom is, and then my mom got real quiet, or my mom was really quiet, and you're like, dude, what's up with the mom? And then
she was almost invisible in the movie.
Then it gets explained. Okay, she was, blah blah blah, but yeah, no, she was hardly there in the movie. So it's just, yeah. Anyways, so okay, but how people deal with love? You have the romantic love versus the platonic love versus, okay, friendship love. So, do you think this book did a decent job of showing friendship love and versus platonic love?
I believe so. And I did have a lot of your similar feelings when it came to Sam towards the end of, well, you don't participate. And it's like, well, he's respecting your boundaries. You told him a thing.
Seriously, and he does participate. He bought everybody the best presents ever. He attends things. He goes to things. He got up on stage in Rocky Horror. He reads books and writes essays. And what the hell more do you want from him? For goodness sakes. Like, I was fine with Sam until toward the very end. And then I was like, oh my God, get your head out of your ass. Like, what is your problem? And they downplayed it a little bit in the movie. Like, because in the movie, she never says to him, don't like me like that. She doesn't say that to him. And their little fight at the end is not the same at all as it is in the book. In the book, it was uncomfortable to read. She's like raking him over the coals, and then they're going to have sex, right? Like, it just, yeah. It's like, okay, so Sam, you're processing your own shit, but leave Charlie out of it. Yeah, that was very strange. I didn't like that. Grumble.
And just because you're quiet and observing doesn't mean you're not also a participant. So yeah, that kind of got to me. I liked it when he went to the mall and he's making all these observations about people.
Yes.
And it is fascinating. And if he wants to be a writer, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You do observe people, and that is participating in your life. That is like trying to figure out how people are and how things work.
Seriously. He even at the very beginning, and I think the movie actually did a better job of showing this a little bit, although I still think it's pretty faulty, is that, like, very early on, Charlie's teacher Bill says, you don't participate. You just watch, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Bill, how the fuck do you know? You're in one class with him. He doesn't raise his hand. Like, so maybe he's tired. Maybe he doesn't want to be the teacher's pet. Like, he's not participating in life. Like, what the heck? In the movie, it was like Bill was asking questions of the class and Charlie was writing down the correct answer, but not raising his hand. And again, like, oh, that's not participating. No, man, that's like maybe not making yourself a target, says the girl who used to get made fun of when she answered all the questions in school.
And there is a lot of explicit, he's getting picked on constantly.
Seriously, he doesn't even do anything. He just sits down and the girl next to him in that class makes fun of him.
Yeah, she's
awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, what the heck? And then in the book, when he tries, like at the end of the school year, he like talks to the boy next to him in his locker. He's like, hi, my name is Charlie. And the kid's like, I know. And then walks away. And I was like, well, if I was Charlie, I wouldn't talk to that asshole either. Like, good grief. Although it is this freaking self-perpetuating thing because all of his friends are seniors. He's literally going to start his sophomore year with nobody. So I'm not feeling overly optimistic for Charlie here. Like, what's he going to do?
I have friends who are introverts. My mom's an introvert. And it is painful for them to have to deal with people too much.
Yes.
And I thought that was just really unfair. It's okay for people to be introverts. Introverts out there is okay.
Yes.
If you need to have your solitude, that is fine. It doesn't mean you're not participating in your own life.
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes the best thing that can happen for an introvert is an extrovert finds them and adopts them. And sometimes the best thing for an introvert is that they sit quietly next to another introvert and not have a conversation. And that's both okay.
Yes.
It's both okay. I'm an extrovert. I don't know if you've caught that. And I like to adopt the random introvert, Ashley. And that's okay. They love me. I love them. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Yes. So, something that I think the movie did really good was tapping into this idea of the...
Well?
Yes. Well, something I think the movie did really well. The movie did a good job at tapping into the music nostalgia.
Yeah.
And the music was good. The soundtrack is good. I love these group of nonconformists.
The
literally
Buddhist punk.
So she was a Buddhist punk in the movie.
Okay, so Mary Elizabeth, I thought got a bad rap.
I liked her so much. And then she is played by an actress whose name I don't know off the top of my head, but she's in Good Girls, and she was also in Parenthood, and she's amazing, and I love her, and she's super cute, and oh my god, I'd totally forgotten because I didn't know who she was when I saw this movie the first time, but now that I'm, watching it now, I was like, I love her so much. She's so good. Anyways, Mary Elizabeth. I thought she was going to be a lesbian when we started the book, and then she wasn't, and I was fine. I'm okay with that, but...
Also, like, the actress I really liked, she wasn't, like, the standard super skinny emo girl. It's like, she's still awesome. I get that her chatting was a little irritating for Charlie, because if you are an introvert, that does start to wear on you.
You got to be careful, introverts out there, about the extrovert who adopts you. Sometimes the extroverts who adopt you don't really want to adopt an introvert. They just want to adopt a lump of clay that they can talk at. So just beware.
Yeah, so part of that, I just thought that she was kind of young and she needs her own challenges. And
for sure,
there is this ongoing theme of people not appreciating the gifts you give them. So the sister gets the album from, crazy ponytail boyfriend. And she's like, oh, here, Charlie, I don't even want to listen to it.
The mixtape.
Yeah, yes. And that's how he discovers Asleep by the Smiths. And it turns out to be really good. And just not accepting the gifts that are thoughtful, that were, like, somebody really cared about you enough to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a motif of that. And she wouldn't read Walden. She was kind of like, oh, whatever, your book.
Well, that's because she's part of that little group where it's cool to be better than all that. It's cool to be jaded and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean... Come on, we all knew Mary Elizabeth in high school. Oh. Some of us were, maybe, Mary Elizabeth in high school. Nobody in this room, of course.
So, I have a bit of a Mary Elizabeth when I'm like, oh, you're reading that book. Ugh. But I expect that to turn into a conversation.
Okay, I literally got called out on that on our Facebook page the other day. I was like, hey, Pages and Popcorn podcast audience, like the summer, blah, 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 what are you reading? And somebody... legitimately wrote in and said, I'm scared to tell you because you're gonna crap all over it. And I was like, oh! And then my feelings were hurt for a minute. I was like, that's not true. There's lots of books I like. And they're like, yeah, name one. And I was like, okay, well, here are some books I read recently that I liked. And I was like, God damn it, people. I resemble that remark. Yeah.
A lot of the time, I don't want to judge people's reading. Like, if you really love romance or westerns or whatever, and you just want popcorn fiction, that's fine. Read what you want. That said, I do make fun of somebody I know who reads a lot of Ayn Rand. Cindy, hi. How you doing, Cindy?
Oh my god, this is like the name-dropping episode. Who else of my friends can I bring in? No. Yeah, okay, it is hard when you feel passionate about something to not, but we all need to learn from Mary Elizabeth to not be so... It's not cool to be jaded. It isn't. And in high school, it is. In high school, it's cool to be jaded. You're like, whatever, I've read that, I've done that, I'm better than that, I look beyond that. I'm a nonconformist because I'm not on the pep squad, but I'm going to sit around every Friday night and drink because I'm such a I'm a rebel with my, pot. Oh my god, you guys. Seriously. So that hypocrisy, or not hypocrisy, is it hypocrisy? It's the...
cynicism?
Well, I was going to say, like, when you think you're being really cool and you're actually not, like, that misunderstanding of life is very teenage, right? All teenagers, I'm going to say, most teenagers think that they're the first ones to have experienced this, or to go through this, or to, like, my parents just don't understand, and, like, our generation is da-da-da-da-da.
It's a really important stage in
for sure.
Part of
Charlie realizes, though, that they're not unique and special. Like, other kids, like his parents sat at the big boy and had conversations, and, like, their parents before them, and his kids probably will too, and, like he sees, like, this kind of timeline thing about it, you know, how we're all just like little specks in the, that's just kind of cool. And usually you get there when you've had a couple things
to piggytail on that, of how, special and unique, how many high school cliches were in this movie?
Oh, all the cliches.
So, like, the school dance, or it was a choreographed little dance that they had.
Yes.
And it's
living room routine. Which is cute.
It's ridiculous.
But it was cute. Okay.
And it's not bad to be critical sometimes.
Just
to say.
I feel like the characters of Sam and Patrick, you've talked about the idea of the Mary Sue, like it's so perfect that it's annoying. Like, they were so perfect in some, like, they were both flawed, they both had their things, like Sam, whatever, and with her don't like me, whatever, and Patrick had, depth because he was gay and he had this secret romance and he, went through some sadness and like all of that stuff, for sure. They weren't like one-dimensional. But, I mean, if you wrote, my sad little freshman character needs to be adopted by somebody cool.
That's Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Yeah, well, they're Manic Pixie Dream Friends. Oh my god, they are Manic Pixie Dream Friends.
They are.
We're gonna just randomly adopt you at a football game for no reason at all. And at least in the movie, they said, okay, he said his friend died, and then so they felt bad for him, and then it kind of was allowed to grow and change. But I'm sorry, I remember being a senior. Like, you wouldn't just maybe it was me. I wouldn't just adopt a random freshman and then be like, yes, now we're all best friends forever and ever. Although, so you have to wonder, what was their motivation?
That's why I think the Mary Elizabeth kiss was so interesting, and they completely isolated Charlie. And they know he's got a history. They know he's alone. That's why they adopted him. Right. And that is really painful. So I felt for Charlie and that whole rejection business.
For sure, because teenagers are assholes. But, what I felt, what it feels like to me, it was a lot of performative stuff. Sam and Patrick, their awesomeness was very performative. We do Rocky Horror. We do the living room routine at the school dance. We are these people. This is who we are, and this is how we see ourselves. We're going to take care of this little freshman. We're doing all of these things. And it's very, I think ultimately it became more than just surface, but it kind of started that way. And so then it was easy for them to reject him and cut him out completely until he performed an epic feat, of bravery and machonism, and beat the shit out of some football players who were, tag teaming on Patrick, and not in the good way.
Well, I thought the Rocky Horror was his big feat. The fight.
That's when they forgave him, though. They forgave him and welcomed him back because of his big, because of that. But yeah, but he did get more accepted into the group after he performed in Rocky Horror and was willing to be stripped down to nothing but a little gold undies and all of this stuff, which, okay. So, but that is what teenagers are. It's very performative, right?
I totally know drama school kids who were like that.
I don't even think you have to be in drama school kids to be performing. I remember at one point being like, I love this song. And my mom was like, what's it about? And I was like, I don't know. That's not the point. Because I knew she didn't like it. And so it didn't matter what the song was about. She didn't like it. She rolled her eyes. And I suddenly loved that. It was The Offspring, by the way. So, yes, teenagers, jerks. So I think the book did a good job of all of that. It's not a perfect book by any means, but it was decent. I felt like it kind of was trying to do too many things, which is, what you said earlier. It didn't overly bother me, but especially towards the end. I was reading it, and I had read it, like I said, years ago and seen the movie years ago, and I was very close to the end, and I was actually having lunch with Ashley, and I said, I could have sworn there was this thing with his aunt, but it hasn't happened yet. And I'd forgotten that it was
dumped at the end.
It's so shoehorned in at the end. And then I feel like he went back and added a couple of pebbles along the way to get us there because we needed a climactic thing. And just back into the world of Bridget Jones. Remember when we talked about how she's writing in her diary and she's like, oh, I'm so drunk, I'm falling over, I'm laying on the floor, oh, I just blah, 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 blah. And you're like, you're not really writing this down because that's not how people work. I felt that way with Charlie in the last letter. He's like, I'm having a mental breakdown. I'm going catatonic, but I'm going to write pages and pages to explain to you, my friend, what's happening. And then I'm going to mail the letter. Then I'm going to go
Then I'm going to sit on the couch naked and go into my
talk. Here's the thing. I lived through a traumatic incident. I've lived through a few, but one in particular, I remember very clearly, was lying there And I had this thought. I think I'm going to just become hysterical. I think I could just tip forward into this chasm and just scream and maybe never stop. Like, this was my thought. And then I thought, Kaylia, if you're aware that you're on the ledge and you're choosing whether or not to fall into that chasm of screaming and never stop screaming, then you can't do that. You don't have that excuse, because that's making a choice. So if you're aware enough to know that you're making a choice, then you can't say, oh, I was swept away and I you know what I mean? So I had to make a choice, and I was like, okay, I need to get up. I need to clean myself off and move on with life. And so I feel like when characters do this in books, they're like, I'm going to have this huge mental breakdown, but I'm going to take the time to write about it first.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't you stop to write a letter when you were going through your traumatic phase?
Right, a long letter full of direct quotes. Yeah, and so that takes you out of it a little bit, and then again it gets back. I feel like it's very performative, like, because let's be honest here. These letters, he's not the most reliable narrator.
Nope.
He presents himself, and because he's the observer and he's the wallflower, it's very easy to be like, of course, he's totally accurate. But he's not, because we're only getting his stuff.
Yeah, that's why both of us can look at, wait a second, Mary Elizabeth is actually pretty cool. You just aren't meshing because you don't mesh, but that doesn't take away from her coolness.
Right.
It's you being unreliable.
Yeah, for sure. So, and you know what? Who the hell is he writing to?
Yeah, it's just, hey, friend.
Yeah.
And
because you didn't sleep with that person at that party that one time, even though you could have. And I'm like, okay, so it feels like you've got like an urban legend story from maybe your sister or your brother, because they're the people who went to parties. So, but like, I don't know. And like, why even have that part? Because you're the kind of person who didn't sleep with that person at that party when you,
so obviously you're very sensitive.
Maybe, but like it's like a weird detail to put in to, I don't know, whatever. I would have almost rather this had been the diary and not I don't know.
So part of what got me, and this is not to invalidate anyone who has gone through similar experiences and had these reactions, and I am not a psychologist, but from personal experience, there was a lot of, this is an author making up something for drama, not something for psychological realism. And that kind of bothers me, because it is some really serious stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that part of it just made me cringe. There are certain things that I really, really hate seeing in novels that are done because the author's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate when something like child abuse or rape is a backstory so a character can whinge at a right time. Because those have effects. Those have ongoing effects. And if you don't write about it correctly, you are doing a disservice to people who actually go through these kinds of things.
Agreed.
So that part of the novel is like, you don't know what you're really talking about. So maybe do some research, or maybe stay away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't need it to be the bingo book of, all the things.
Yeah, so Holden Caulfield, Catcher in the Rye, I could not get away from it, and it was the style. So I know a lot of people have compared this. I found this out after reading the book and looking up about, people who write about this and that. It was just really, I did. Really, this happened. It was very, very this whatever. And really, That was how it was.
I kept waiting for the word phony.
Yeah, and it's just
but it would have been 1999. It would have been fake, right?
So it turns out that, yes, that was one of the author's favorite books. Yes, he based a lot of his writing style off of that. No kidding.
Yeah. I did think that Bill's list of books that Charlie read throughout the year was interesting, especially for a freshman.
Well, The Fountainhead, why would you
do that to a poor child? I know. Okay, we're judging again, but that's okay.
Okay, there aren't that many books I will judge. I will judge that. I will judge Ayn Rand and the 50 Shades of Grey
and so,
stuff.
I mean, like, if you get into it, like, why was Bill giving him those books? And they all seem to be really mirrored in what was going on and, like, all of this stuff, but Bill didn't know what was going on, because you know what I mean? So, it seemed very convenient.
I like the little side plot with his brother when he's talking about his cheerleader girlfriend. He's like, well, she likes Walden, and she does this, and she's not this shallow little thing that you want to make her out because you want to be this pretend feminist.
Yeah, he's yelling at his own sister.
Yeah,
about that.
I was like, that was kind of cool, and that was when Charlie was reading Walden, and he wanted to connect with this cheerleader.
Right, and then of course his brother broke up with her. Yeah. So like you have to kind of wonder if she really was, but into Walden. But this kind of
also goes into gifts that are not understood, where the brother goes back and does read the essay at the end, and he's like, yeah, that was actually pretty good.
Right, and Candace does listen to the tape, the mixed tape, and he's like, oh yeah, that is a good tape.
Because there is a big thing about him giving, like, the perfect gift to everybody.
Yes.
I like Patrick's line in the movie of, stop eating Christmas!
Yeah.
Just enjoy it! So, I didn't hate the novel. There are certain things that annoyed me. And one of them is, to me, it's the unforgivable sin of trying to write about trauma without really understanding it.
I enjoyed the novel. I do think it was doing a lot, trying to do a lot. I'm okay with that because I think that was kind of the point. Teenagers try to do a lot. Teenagers try to understand a lot.
I think it's a good starting off point for a discussion. Mm-hmm. Especially if you have teenagers. It's like, okay, well, here's a serious topic. Let's actually talk about it and put it into context. Which the novel should have done more of, but if you were going to teach it in class, it's one of the top 3 banned books.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they keep trying to move it into adult literature instead of YA literature.
And it's totally YA.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
YA characters doing YA things.
Get over
There's
it.
even a love triangle.
Teenagers do stuff. Let them at least have an adult who's responsible to go, all right, let's put this into context. Let's talk about what's going on. Let's look at the character arc and what's really good for them at the end.
And I do feel like the book is very timeless. Like, it doesn't age badly because there's very little in it that is time specific,
yeah, the music is a little bit, but that's nostalgia.
That's nostalgia, and it's, and they made the movie 13 years later, and they changed the music, some of it, but some of it was the same. They still had us sleep because there are some songs that are just classic, apparently, and are always going to speak to teenagers. But I love the idea of the mixtape. Okay, so it was mixtapes, which in the 90s were still a thing, although it was CDs too at that time. It was getting more into CDs, but we still did mixtapes. I did a lot of mixtapes. I received a lot of mixtapes. And then it was playlists. And, it was burnt CDs, right? I still have a lot of burnt CDs, and so do my sisters. Like, one year for Christmas, I made everybody a CD with songs. Like, that was my gift. And then it was playlists, like specific playlists for specific things and days and times and dates and people and blah, blah, blah. And I even did weird ones like, this playlist is all about songs about color. This playlist is all songs I like to sing in the shower. This, whatever. And you still do that. Spotify is all about playlists.
But the thing about it is, like, Spotify, you just click a couple buttons. With the burn CD, you shuffle over a few songs and you're done. Mixtapes took work.
Oh my God, yes.
That took effort.
Well, and sometimes you had to, request the song on the radio, and then wait till they played the song, so then you could record it. So you'd miss the beginning, or you'd miss the very end, or you would just record straight up, and you'd have to cut out the commercials later. And then I loved in the movie where he's recording and it stops in the middle. I'm like, oh boy, I feel you, because I can't.
And you had to time it right.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise you'd have this weird 3 minutes of silence at the end, or you'd have a song cut off, which is really frustrating.
So back in the day, kids, making mixtapes was a labor of love. And you have it easy nowadays. With your punk rock and your video games.
It feels like adults watching this is kind of nostalgia because, oh yeah, I remember making mixtapes. Whereas the kids today, which is a phrase I normally really hate, do they have any understanding of the effort it took to make a mixtape? Is that something that's kind of lost? There are a couple things that are lost in translation here.
A few things, but for the most part, I think that it did a decent job. And the ideas are big enough and universal enough to,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it would be nice if when my child is a teenager and early, adulthood, if she were to watch this, she goes, oh my God, why is Brad afraid of his dad? What is, people didn't like gay people? That is so crazy, Mom. I would love if we were there in 10 to 15 years. Don't know if we'll get there. But there are some things that I'm okay with us as a society maybe moving away from and having it kind of feel dated. But the mixtape thing did not.
So, yes, kids
That's
are
just
still
adorable.
Kids still get a lot of crap from their parents if they are, LGBT. But it seems like the rate of children being thrown out of their homes is less than it used to be. And that isn't to say it doesn't happen, and it's not tragic. It's just societal acceptance is becoming more predominant.
Societal acceptance is becoming more dominant. I don't know about the statistics, because the last time I did read statistics for that, it was still like 40% or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, like, the suicide rates are so high in LGBT teens. And that was very sad to watch Patrick spiral. And Charlie doesn't know how to deal with that. It was interesting because, like, Charlie sees somebody hit his sister. He knows that that's wrong. He tells an adult. Like, he understands. Charlie sees Patrick spiraling, having unprotected, dangerous sex.
Yes, I was
doing drugs, doing all of these things. And Charlie doesn't know what to do, so he just tags along. And on the one hand, it's frustrating. You're like, do something. And on the other hand, you're like, but I understand, because you're still a kid. Charlie's like 15.
He's a teenager and doesn't know what to do.
He doesn't know what to do. And then thankfully, Patrick was able to turn it around on his own. So, good. But my God, how close that could have gone, really easily gone the other direction.
And you don't know what future consequences might come out of this that aren't known in the book at the end. And yeah, I was terrified for Patrick the entire time. I
really feel like Patrick's story got wrapped up way too fast and easy too. Yeah.
But there was a scene that was missing from the movie that I really liked in the book, and that was when they're going to the family holiday, and the brother talks about the sister and makes that comment about the boyfriend who hits her. And the father stops the car. Like, everyone is jerked forward. They almost all get whiplash. And he turns around and he stares at the brother. And then he turns around and he stares at the sister until they apologize. And then Charlie has to drive. And it's Charlie as the glue of the family. He's the one, because cars are really important in this. There are a lot of independence. But at that point, Charlie's taken over, even if he's terrified to do this. And it's a great metaphor for teenagerhood when you're not really ready to take on a certain adult aspect, but that is part of becoming independent. That is part of becoming an adult. So that scene I wish had been in the movie.
Yeah, I agree. That would have been a good scene to be in there.
I thought they did the fight fairly well.
But so they left out the whole abortion thing, so they would have had to put that in, and then it would have,
Because, the sister gets hit, and then almost nothing happens in the movie. And so that, to me, was... I get it, you can't have everything. But
right, and then she just breaks up with him for, and then she's going stag to prom with her girlfriend, and you're like, okay, like, sure. So you talked about how in the movie, or in the book, you didn't feel like we got her lesson, her thing, and wasn't there at all.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why I thought it was so weird that Charlie called her. Like, why did he call her? But why didn't he call Patrick? I mean, it felt like, why? But his sister... But in the movie, we didn't have a foundation of them having a good relationship like we did in the book. In the book, if he had called his sister, it would have made perfect sense. So
not a perfect book, but definitely, I would say it's worth your time, especially as a teenager when you're trying to figure things out.
Yeah, I would say it's worth your time even if you're not a teenager, because, it's still worth reading, and it's enjoyable. It's you're interested, you keep reading. For all of its faults, I definitely... I'm glad that I read it. And the movie, I think, did a good job of what it was trying to do. It had picked a couple of the main things, and then it worked really well at them. And I thought it was shot beautifully. I thought the casting was extraordinary.
I was going to say, I liked the fight scene. I liked how that was done, where you don't actually have a lot of the violence from Charlie on screen, but you do have that same reaction that he had. Yeah.
Again, like we talked about with Fight Club, where it's the spectator's response to the violence clues us in to how we should be feeling about the violence.
And his head was all bruised up.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, and in the book, and then it even says, if you touch my friend again, I'll blind you. And they're like, yep, yes, he will.
And he did something that they were like, okay, yeah,
they were like,
really do that.
Holy crap. Yeah.
He took, 4 football players?
Yeah, and he won. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Go Charlie.
Go Charlie. I hope Charlie does well as a sophomore. I'm a little worried about Charlie, honestly, as a sophomore. But Bob will still be around. Bob's the, pothead guy who just lives, nearby. So it'll be a whole new crop of
the
kids.
teacher's staying, so even though Charlie won't be a student,
he'll be around.
He'll be a friend in need.
Yeah, but his siblings will be gone. It'll be just him and his parents. It'll be a lot of quiet dinners I'm imagining in Charlie's future. Okay, so there we go. I think we did it. I didn't even look at my notes.
Thing, I really love Patrick's clock in the movie.
Oh God, it was so good. I love when the teacher was like, and he goes, "If you fail me, I'll have to have me next semester." And the teacher's like, "Pass." It was so good. I loved Patrick in the movie.
Yeah, that actor did a really good job, and he was so cute.
Very cute. Okay, there we go. Well, this was a fun back to school. So back to school, everybody. starting whether you're starting your freshman year, your sophomore year, your senior year, or some year that doesn't have a number because you're in college. We hope you have a good school year. Yes, there we go.
All right, and thanks for listening.